Let's imagine life with ADHD. On this particular morning, you wake up and you have what sounds like wind blowing through your brain, but it's just this like tinnitus that you got, and you can't seem to ignore it or shake it. And you're deciding to persevere because you're on this day going to meet your friend at a park who has told you that they love your insight and feedback, your compassion. They say that you're a good listener and that when you speak, you have this creative way of looking at a problem, and they want you to help them with this struggle with their relationship. So you're driving down to the park, you get out, you notice that they're already waiting for you. You get out of your car, you feel the cold chill of this fall air on your face, and you debate for a second, do I need to bring my jacket or not? You decide just to go with it because you're eager to hear what your friend has to say and you want to help. They take you past a river, like this meandering river that goes through the trail, and you're noticing the changing of leaves, and also like you probably should have brought your jacket, and you're feeling every time the wind blows like a chill that's just cutting to your core. And did you know, like, put the wrong shoe on, or was there a rock or something in your sock, and maybe you wore the wrong socks, and meanwhile your friend is continuing to talk and share, and you're now like just nodding and really trying hard to like lock in this conversation. And then your nemesis, the park, opens up, and the gazebo that you were going to sit at is now filled with people having some sort of like board game event, and they're talking, and there's like laughter all around. Soda cans are opening up, and um, people brought their dogs, and their dogs are barking, and there's a basketball game in the distance, and the kids are playing at the playground near you, and what looked like a meandering river is actually kind of this big pond, and there's ducks and geese, and you don't know what your friend's talking about anymore, but you don't want to be rude, so you're just nodding and nodding and nodding. This is what it can feel like to have ADHD. For many ADHD minds, communication can feel a lot like that. It's not an inability to pay attention. It's listening to everything, everywhere, all at once, without the filter that helps you turn off the things that aren't as important. In fact, your brain thinks everything is important, and you kind of miss out on what you need. So you can imagine how difficult it is to have a conversation with somebody where they're excited to meet you and they're excited to hear your thoughts, and it's a positive, it's a good vibe. Now imagine if that same scenario was occurring, but it was a hard conversation. It was a difficult conversation. Hi, I'm Matt Johnson with Flourishing Oak. I'm a clarity coach here, and I'm also an associate marriage and family therapist. In this video, I want to share something I call the 5 dynamics of ADHD communication. These are 5 things that shape how we experience all conversations, but it's particularly prudent when we think about the experiences and the sensations that are going through someone who is neurodivergent. So that's ADHD, OCD, and the like. Now, I got this material from some personal training that I received from a gentleman named Spencer Chernick, and I'll put his information in the description below. I also got this from my clinical experience working with clients, from my schooling, and also just life lived experiences. So, first thing we want to consider is frequency. That's how often the conflict happens. When patterns repeat, someone with ADHD may start to anticipate rejection or criticism before it even happens. The more frequent the conflict, the more mental energy gets strained trying to predict or prevent it. Over time, this can trigger guilt or avoidance, making open communication harder even when the intention is good. So, when we have the argument over and over again, we're missing one key element, that the person you're talking to has probably had the argument in their head over and over and over again. We all suffer from automatic negative thoughts, but due to the upbringing and the school experience and maybe home experience, guilt and shame can really run amok in the mind of someone with ADHD. And so they learn to anticipate any conversation as a potential threat to just like, oh no, I did something wrong. So keeping this in mind, when we're bringing up a conversation and we know that we've brought it up a few more times, being sensitive to how we bring it up, maybe priming the pump a little bit and asking, hey, can we talk about this in the future? Or just sitting on it for a couple of days because it's just going to be better that the relationship that you have with this person isn't something that's frequently happening over and over again about the same conflict. All right, next one, duration. Duration is how long the conflict lasts, like in that one session. For many with ADHD, long or drawn out discussions can feel overwhelming or impossible to follow. Focus drifts, details blur, and frustration builds fast. When conversations go too long, it can spark emotional flooding. When they end too soon, things stay unresolved. Both can leave a person feeling misunderstood and ashamed. I know in my own, like raising my kids, it could take a good 10 minutes just for them to say, what do you want to talk about? Why do you want to bring this up? Right? And that's already 10 minutes of tension and agony and automatic negative thoughts. So sometimes it could be like, hey, let's talk about this in 20 minutes. All right, let's move on to the next one. So let's talk about style. Style is how the conflict is delivered. ADHD minds connect best when met with curiosity, gentleness, and patience. Fast pacing or demanding tones, loud tones, or too soft tones can overwhelm focus and trigger defensiveness. Use simple language. I remember Spencer said, you want to almost talk like a caveman, right? Keep it very brief, very concise. Don't use allegory when you can just say it straightforward. You want to keep steady pacing, long pauses, and expressing needs without using the five negatives. And we call those can't, don't, won't, shouldn't, and no. When we explain displeasure or disappointment or kind of a negative point of view without using the negatives, and that can be very challenging, but it creates conversations that are less reactive and more collaborative. I'll give you an example. When I worked for summer camp, I would lifeguard and I would have to tell the kids, don't walk, stop running. And I would have to yell it over and over and over again. And then I realized, hey, if I say it more gently, people tend to respond better. They're not so reactive. So I started saying, please walk. Hey, great swimsuit. I need you to walk, please. And that worked out way better than just being another clanging gong of negativity in somebody's voice. All right, enough on that. Intensity is how strong is the conflict feel? The emotional charge within a conflict can feel amplified for someone with ADHD. Raised voices, harsh language, or even quiet tension can register as pressure or a threat, prompting either withdrawal or a reactive response. Calming tones, steady volume, grounded body language creates safety, making it easier to think clearly and to collaborate. So there's a little difference here between style and intensity. Style is like the flavor that you bring, or the like, and intensity is more about the energy that you're bringing, that you're putting off. If you're dating someone and you say, "Hey, we need to talk," boom, just those words, even just softly spoken, can create a huge intensity. So starting with leaning in with something positive. Hey, babe, I love you, and I think you know I'm so glad we met. I was wondering if we could talk about how we meal plan together because I really want to share meals with you, and I know we're both very busy. Man, it just disarms the ADHD mind and invites a collaborative vibe. All right. And this last one's super important, and we touched on it at the beginning of this video. Circumstance. When and where the conflict occurs. External factors like noise, hunger, fatigue, or competing distractions, right? Like trying to prioritize. The kid needs to eat. The dog is needs to go outside. We're trying to have an intense conversation, and we left the TV on, and so it's like all these competing things can quickly overload an ADHD nervous system. Trying to talk through hard things in those conditions will almost always backfire. Choosing calmer moments, structured times, and environments with fewer sensory demands helps both people stay grounded and connected. And we talked about the power of circumstance at the beginning of our video. Conflict isn't failure, it's an opportunity to understand each other better. For ADHD relationships, success isn't about avoiding tensions, it's about learning to navigate it with awareness, empathy, and pacing. Look, when you pay attention to these 5 dynamics frequency, duration, style, and intensity, and of course, circumstance conversations stop being battles and they start becoming bridges towards healing and authentic relationships. If this framework resonated with you, try it this week. Pick one of the dynamics to focus on, and maybe tell your phone to remind you every day at 2 p.m. to try something, style, or to think about the duration of an argument. Now, if you'd like more practical tools for ADHD communication or couples communications, you can find resources and new videos every week at flourishingoak.com, and of course on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're all over the place. But if you could benefit from like one-on-one interactions, then reach out to us at flourishingoak.com/contact, and we'll get you connected with a clarity coach that could help you out, or we could help you find some referrals or let you know how to get started on getting help through a therapist. No matter what you choose today, we're here to partner with you to have a flourishing life.